Sent me to the wrong room. I feel like my molecules are mixed up. Someone really needs to make sure the transporter buffer's working properly. Well, good news. I'm in command of a ship with actual crew now. It's still a tiny ship with all kinds of old junk. I'm pretty sure the replicator made mellow yellow when I told it to make Mountain Dew. Real old transporters, Mark I torpedoes. It's a mess all around.
Only cheapskates and Romulans use Mark I torpedoes.
Anywho, we're looking at a couple more games based off of Star Trek The Next Generation to try and wash down the taste of that Transinium Challenge game. Ugh. So that means it's time for part 2 of Star Trek Month. Star Trek The Next Generation for SNES and Genesis. Well, technically it has two different names. The Genesis version is called Echoes from the Past, and the SNES version is called Futures Past. To my viewers outside the States, yes, I know that Genesis is called the Mega Drive literally everywhere else. But my console says Genesis, so it's a Genesis. So, are these games better than the Transinium Challenge? Duh, of course they are. But how much better? Probably not as much as I'd like to hope. Let's dive right into Echoes from the Past and Futures Past to find out. Confusingly enough, only the boxes and manuals give the full titles of the games. If you pick up a cartridge, it's just Star Trek The Next Generation. Not to be confused with the Game Boy, Game Gear, and NES games of the same name, which have a completely different style of gameplay. Welcome to the confusing field of video game archival. The first thing I notice is this little logo on the SNES version's box. Turns out both games were developed by Spectrum HoloByte. Yes, that Spectrum HoloByte. Vet, Falcon, Clockworks, Breakthrough, etc. Of all places, this would be one of the last I expect to see this rainbow. They're usually involved in simulation and puzzle games, and while they have a few, very few sci-fi and adventure games out there, it's not exactly their field of expertise. Yes, this means my useless knowledge of Macintosh video gaming companies made me wary before I even started to play this game. One big difference right off the bat is I noticed that, for whatever reason, the dialogue in the Genesis version is longer, more detailed, and actually has dialogue trees. Sort of. Aside from a few things, the outcome doesn't really change. But it's still important, it's a Star Trek game. You can't have Star Trek without dialogue. Just to tell you now, spoilers ahead, because I'm going to be comparing how both versions handle the gameplay and the story. Both versions have the same core gameplay and story, but they both handle each of them in different ways, for better and for worse for each version, and we'll see how that works out. It's weird that the same company would be developing both of these and they'd be so totally different. Sort of, but we'll get to that. I played the Genesis version first, a blessing as far as story goes and a curse as far as gameplay goes. But we'll get to that. In either version, you're rescuing a Vulcan archaeologist, Talaris, or, Teleris. Wow, first piece of story and we're already inconsistent. That's a good sign. In the Genesis version, you simply get a distress call from Talaris on Codus Nu 6 that her dig is under attack by Romulans, while in the SNES version, she gives you a distress call while taking the time to tell you exactly what legends she's investigating. Yeah, because you'd think to include that in your message while you're under attack by Romulans. I guess if they're using Mark I torpedoes, there's nothing to be scared of. That's really the big difference between the two plots. The SNES version likes to have no surprises whatsoever, while the Genesis version gradually tells you what's going on, finally letting you know everything later after you're wondering what's so interesting to the Romulans and this other alien species, the Chodak. Which, if you've played some other Next Generation games, no, they don't look like that. They look like this. Retcons! They're not just for comic books anymore! The on-foot sections are, sadly, quite similar and both quite annoying. These sections are the bulk of each of the games, and they're both awkward bits where you're often expected to shoot things, taking hits and hardly being able to do anything to avoid it. In the SNES version, you also have limited phaser charge. However, in this version, you also have medical officers who can heal people, or heck, just pick up phaser charge and health pickups, because that's how Star Trek works. If you ever see a bunch of empty, pointless cabinets while playing the Genesis version, yeah, you know what those are for now. Data can't be healed by med packs because, well, he's an android. But he can still use the health pickups on the ground. Yeah, go figure that one out. You probably won't notice the clunkiness much at first. The Romulans are a bit of a pushover, especially if you just bring Data and Worf along. Being an android and a Klingon, these two are strong as heck and pretty much an essential staple on any away mission, at least for the most part. Either version, you rescue the Vulcan archaeologist, who says a lot more and looks a lot more like a Vulcan in the Genesis version. In the SNES version, it's one screen of dialogue, and she's kinda busty. Fair enough, I guess Vulcan women can be busty too. And she's smiling. Vulcans don't smile, something's wrong here, abort, abort! Oh, I didn't think that would actually work. Well, I guess the SNES version allows for more stupid mistakes. Let's just add phaser stunning innocent Vulcan archaeologist to Riker's stupid decisions list. Or let's not. Riker actually looks kinda possessed in this version. I'll just put this away here. Yeah. Now in the Genesis version, that about wraps that particular mission up. In the SNES version, you now enter into a space battle with a Romulan scout ship, which, since you're a Galaxy-class starship, you can easily end up blasting out of existence. Whoops. Whether you get them to surrender or not, though, it doesn't seem to change much aside from a dialogue line. That's one of the good big changes here in the SNES version. Space combat is better and shows up more often. In the Genesis version, there's only one mandatory space battle, and the battle system in there sucks. Fortunately, you can get out of almost any space battle by talking your way out or, as I figured out later, going immediately to the con and warping again. I'm not even kidding on that one. You can just ignore almost every ship in the game, Romulan or Chodak. Right near the Romulan Neutral Zone. Yeah, like you'd be able to get away that easily. I'm really surprised you can, too. The Romulans are dicks, firing on you out of the blue and saying, "Hey, we tried to hail you." No, you didn't! No wonder we have a neutral zone keeping them away. These guys are assholes. After that, let's go to a starbase and restock and heal everyone. Look it up on the computer, warp there, and get our password in the SNES version. Well, I guess I need this notepad after all. On Genesis... Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Are you seriously telling me my computer would not have the locations of starbases in my sector? Why the hell not? It's not even in the manual. You have to search through your con manually until you find them. This is the worst navigation system ever. You have to find them at some point too, otherwise you'll be going around with a bunch of partially injured team members. So get out a pen and paper and write those locations down. I guess this ended up being useful for this version too. While you're in Warp, you'll be given a mission to deliver medical supplies. On the way there, you encounter a derelict alien vessel, and the game makes a big deal about your decision on who to help first. But you can honestly do this either way, and it doesn't really affect much besides dialogue. The delivery is as simple as getting to the planet. The alien vessel is a bit less straightforward. First of all, you beam down in the dark, which means you need Data or Geordi LaForge here. If you're not familiar with the show, Geordi has a visor that, along with letting him see at all, also gives him enhanced vision. Data sees in blue and Geordi in green in this game, which I think is in reference to an episode where they say Geordi can see better in the dark than Data can. If you don't have them, beam out and come back with one of them in tow. And at least this means they are being faithful to the Next Generation canon. I mean, hell, way faithful. You could spend hours scrolling through the ship's computers and just finding out all kinds of stuff. It's completely pointless for the most part unless you're unfamiliar with Star Trek and need dossiers on the major crew members. That can be helpful, but most of it's just a bunch of filler. Wonder how much space on the cartridge that took up. Basically, you have to run around the ship with security drones constantly going after you, fixing everything in the ship to save the aliens from cryosleep and their deteriorating orbit. Now, the Genesis version, to what few credits it has, actually does this part better. You can destroy the security drone generators, and you have unlimited inventories, which makes this circuit bit a whole lot easier. Yes, you have to be careful what circuits you do pick up in the SNES version, lest you accidentally run out of room in your inventories, along with constantly having to fight off security drones. It's a pain to say the least. I got stuck on this level for a long time before I figured out that these tanks and devices in this cargo bay, yeah, it turns out they're not background items. You can actually pick these up, and in fact it's required to do so. Yeah, thanks for telling me that, game. After you save the aliens, they mention something called the IFD and give you something called the TVAD, the Temporary Artificial Variable Anomaly device, which navigates subspace anomalies, this particular TVAD tuned to the location of the IFD. Technobabble at its finest, everyone. Basically, 10,000 years ago, a race used the IFD as a weapon and committed all sorts of atrocities with it. So it got sent 10,000 years in the future because they figured no one knew how to use the IFD for peace in that time period. Now it's back, so you have to make sure the Romulans and the Chodak don't use it for evil. Blah blah super weapon plot. It's kinda weak for Star Trek, but it's a video game and it's on console. I guess we'll roll with it. Now, as if in exchange for thinking the last level wasn't so bad, welcome to Hell, the Mines of Orion's Gamma 3B. I'm sure any of you who have played this game before just tried to repress a whole bunch of memories I stirred up. The Genesis version is the worst, but either way it's a labyrinth of terrifying proportions that you're expected to find 10 random people scattered in. Only they don't tell you how many people there are, much less how many there are on each floor, so yeah, good luck with that. They somehow managed to balance out the infuriating madness of both versions. The Genesis version is insanely labyrinthine and has a whole bunch of floors, but it has a battery save, so if you manage to save a few people and have to beam out, you can actually save that progress. In the SNES version, if you beam out of a mission, progress is reset, so while the floors are smaller and there's less of them, it still manages to be just as hard because you have to do it all in one go. Another big difference between the two versions is that the SNES version includes these ventilation switches on each floor. If you're using anyone besides Data, you have to turn these on or crew members start getting damaged. So just bring Data and don't worry about it, because he's an android and doesn't have to worry about breathing. In the Genesis version, these aren't there, so just bring a couple of strong people and start searching. Like I said, Worf and Data, it works really well. How long will you be searching? Half an hour? An hour? 2 hours? Who knows, but it'll be a long time. Try this without a walkthrough, I dare you. I did it, but it took a long time and frequent trips back to Starbase. Wait, if they can beam me out from anywhere, why can't they get a lock on the miners and just beam them out? Well, great, there's a giant plot hole they never explain. You'd think they could at least get some sensory readings and tell me how many people are on each floor. If you can get past this, though, you may be able to get through the rest of the SNES version. Maybe the Genesis version, maybe not. We'll get to that. Your next task is to get the Romulan encryption codes. You have to find a Ferengi trader, Damon Radney, that makes regular deep runs into Romulan territory, who is now somewhere in the CODIS sector. At first, this seems like a big old trial and error search that you'll end up having to do, but if you go to the starbase first, like any rational, sane person would do in this situation, you'll figure out that he's just on the planet the starbase is orbiting. Well, that was easy. You beam down and you may notice people giving you false info and generally being really uncooperative. These two tip you off to this fact really quickly. One tells you that Damon Radney went to another planet, and this guy tells you he's Damon Radney. So you know something is up pretty quickly at least. You have to either know from knowledge of the show or read up on the computer about Deanna Troi having empathic abilities to help in communication with aliens and lead the away team with her. Then everyone becomes much more cooperative, and the mission goes by nice and quick. What happens next depends on your version of the game. In the SNES version, you're roped into a mandatory mission of rescuing the SS Nakatomi from the Chodak. In the Genesis version, unless you pick very specific dialogue, they'll just warp away, and whether you rescue the Nakatomi or not has no bearing on the ending. That makes that scene in the Genesis version entirely pointless. Which is why I have no footage of boarding the Nakatomi on the Genesis version. By the way, I would not name my ship the Nakatomi. I mean, I've seen Die Hard, that may influence my decision a little bit. I'd be too afraid that this would happen. In the SNES version, you explore around, shoot Chodak until you get computer keys, hit buttons with another crew member to disable barriers, finally rescue the people, and good lord! That's unnaturally disturbing. Yes, we saved your lives, now go, get out of here! So now you talk to Talaris, where in the Genesis version you finally learn a lot more about the Tavad and the IFD, and then you need to go to Orion's Gamma 3B to get the ores to power the Tavad. Wait. Orion's Gamma 3B, no, no, don't make me go back there again, no, please, I beg you, no!
You cannot change the laws of physics. Laws of physics. Laws of physics. You cannot change the laws of physics. Laws of physics, Jim.
Oh, we come in peace. Shoot to kill, shoot to kill, shoot to kill. We come in peace. Shoot to kill. Scotty, beam me up.
It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. It's worse than that. He's dead, Jim. Dead, Jim. Dead.
Well, it's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Not as we know it. Not as we know it. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it.
Actually, if you're playing the SNES version, it's not bad at all. All you have to do is wander around the first floor, find all the miners. It's easy, they'll just give you the ores, but I played the Genesis version first, and there, you're pretty much revisiting hell, and descending to the bottommost circle of it. Just let me explain what you have to do. I spent hours making trip after trip after trip after trip into these damned forsaken mines. You have to take Geordi with you so that you can see the ores in the walls. Since he's the only one that can see the ores in the walls, you have to make a trip to Starbase each time you have to beam out to heal him. I found 40-something ores and I finally got enough to move on from this part. I looked up a walkthrough afterwards and I saw there was 49 of them. So I didn't find them all, but you have to be pretty damn close. This level is the one that may make you give up on the Genesis version altogether. It's still not over though. Time to head for the subspace anomaly in the Verenator cluster and, talk to the IFD, who gives Picard and this Romulan and Chodak the tests of the IFD. In the Genesis version, there's actually a different transport effect, and the IFD actually makes you figure out what planet to go to in riddles. In the SNES version, it's the same transporter effect and it outright tells you where to go. Well, leaving out the riddles is no fun, it actually gave the con system a purpose. The first test is the test of strength, and this is where the one mandatory space battle the Genesis version takes. Well, what the hell? Did you see that? Look at that, I just got obliterated! Oh, you better be damn ready to go into tactical, or you just get screwed up the ass immediately. What, did Red Alert not put the shields up? And I heard the klaxons, you can't tell me we're not on alert. I don't care if it's red or yellow alert, the shields are gonna be damn well up on this baby. After you manage to go into tactical immediately, it's still friggin' impossible. Your torpedoes don't do dick, so now you have to get up close and phaser the bastards. But it always seems like you keep dying. Okay, now what? What are we missing? Well, you have to set your resources in engineering before you go over, so your necessary systems actually repair themselves during battle. Finally now, after a couple of tries, I can defeat the 10 or so ships the game suddenly throws at you, and then never mentions the space combat system again. However, that actually got me kind of excited. If the battle was that crazy in the Genesis version, surely I'd be in for a treat of an epic battle with the improved space combat in the SNES version. The ship controls better, the torpedoes guide slightly, the phasers fire better, everything's just smoother, and you can even use the auxiliary power to boost shields or phasers in this version, which adds some strategy. Oh, I'm ready as shit, and it's only 2 ships. Are you freaking kidding me? So the version with shitty space combat gets a battle with a whole bunch of ships, and the version with more fluid space combat gets a test of strength with 2 ships, which are easier to destroy than the Romulan or the Chodak ships, which makes random warping across the galaxy more dangerous than the IFD's test of strength. Oh yeah, and the SNES version actually automatically sends you to tactical, imagine that. Yeah, Genesis does what Nintendo don't indeed. Bastards. The Genesis version also has a ground mission after this. The SNES version just gives you the Shard of Strength after defeating the IFD's 2 papier-mâché ships. Funny enough, both versions have the same ground mission, the SNES one is just separate. The Ice Caves, just as complex in both versions. Fun times, good luck. There's no way I'm putting the whole level up here, but suffice it to say it's long, tedious, and it may require some help. Oh, you want to know the best part? No, it's not the giant unkillable ice monsters. Well, okay, they're only unkillable in the SNES version. Why does the SNES version have a trend of unkillable monsters? Anyway, no, it's the fact that you need a couple of items from the ice patches in the walls. but most of them contain kill bots. Have fun figuring that one out. No, the tricorder won't help you, and no, Geordi won't help you either. The only thing you can do is have some trial and error goodness. Yay. The second shard in the Genesis version is in a short little level on another planet. Not too hard, aside from having to figure out there's an item inside of this hut. The slow-moving text gets annoying, though. The SNES version did that right, showing full text boxes when people talked. That was nice. Why are there so many good things in the SNES version, aside from the actual freaking story? The third shard in both versions takes place inside of a trap and puzzle-filled temple. The SNES version is easier again, but both versions are hard as heck, and require lots of trial and error puzzle solving. Like this transporting floor, or these platforms, or this teleporter maze, or this part with platforms that requires you to rapidly switch characters. To this level's credit, the puzzles don't kill you, they just teleport you back to where you started, so there is that. Nah, it's the job of the laser-filled rooms and damaging floors to kill your team. Oh, and guess what? If any of your team is killed, there's parts of the temple that need 4 people to progress, so you can't let anyone die. Not that the game tells you that. Funny enough, the SNES version of this one particular bit that requires you to switch characters around is actually harder. In the Genesis version, it's an inward spiral pattern, and in the SNES version, it's a screw you pattern, that's what it is. I know I'm rushing through these levels, but after the mines, I already feel like a laboratory rodent. Go through this maze, then that maze, find this, find that, do a bunch of tedious time-consuming puzzles that are just trying things until something works. Bleh. Then you reach the final test of the IFD, which is ironically the easiest part of the game, which makes it rather anticlimactic. Put the Shard of Strength near the Chodak, the Shard of Compassion near the Romulan, and either shoot the last guy or wait for him to get out of the way, depending on if it's the Genesis or SNES version, to place the Shard of Wisdom. Yeah, in the Genesis version you face the other guy until he moves to place the Shard of Wisdom. Makes a whole lot of sense, figure that one out. Then you send the IFD forward another 10,000 years because you don't think anyone from this time period can handle the IFD for peace either. In the Genesis version, there is an interesting little bit where it tells you what qualities you have and lack to control the IFD based on your answers, which is kind of a neat little touch. So, what was this super weapon of doom called? The Integrated Field De-Randomizer. That doesn't even make any sense, that's just bad technobabble. That sounds like it was pulled out of someone's ass. Right after they had too much Taco Bell. Bottom line, this game sucks. It's not as bad as the Transinium Challenge, but it still sucks! And now we know why Spectrum HoloByte didn't make many adventure games. The SNES version has decent gameplay, especially the space battles, but the dialogue seems like it's telling a story to a child. A dumb child. The Genesis version looks good and is well written. Okay, better written, but it's frustrating as all hell to play. Somehow both games fell short of a decent product, and some fusion of the two seems to be needed to make something good. So is it terrible? No. Is it good? Hell no. Get it if you want something for your Trek collection, otherwise I wouldn't waste my time on... Oh, son of a bitch! Let me guess, more of the Austringer Empire. Don't they have better things to do than pester underfunded science vessels? You are within the territory of the Austringer Empire. Surrender now or... Damn it, you again! Okay, correction. The same Austringer Empire. What a coincidence, Axelson. It's like you can't get enough of me. Silence, mouse man. We're prepared for your primitive ballistics now. Which we're not even sure you have now. Power down your shields and prepare to be boarded. We pose no threat to your borders, Axelson. Just point us in the direction out and we'll leave. You threatened our ship last we met. You're not leaving again. You weren't going to let me leave unless I bluffed. Besides, we could avoid violating your borders if you actually shared them with us. Duly noted. However, I do not know what data you're collecting in that vessel of yours. It's merely astrometrics data. I'll believe that when I see it. Lower your shields and open your computers to a full probe. I don't like the idea of that. Not that we have much choice. Lower shields, temporary computer clearance 2-5 Foxtrot. You are withholding. Every computer carries its ship schematics. And would you give your ship schematics to me, Axelson? That's not the point. I don't need your ship schematics. Your ship is worthless. It means you didn't fully open your computer banks. Worthless. As if I needed a reminder. Mental note, I really need to talk to Starfleet about customizing security clearances. Temporary computer clearance, Sierra Epsilon 30. That's better. Though I really should just board you after a stunt like that. I expected more under lock and key, knowing your Federation. I told you, it's just astrometrics data, only enough scans to classify and map planets and stars. Now, can we get your territory boundaries to avoid any further misunderstandings? Fine, here is the location of our territory. Consider this your last warning. If I see you or anyone else from your Federation here in Austrian Empire space uninvited, they will not be leaving. Axelson out. She's closed the hail. Take the quickest way out of here and keep on yellow alert. Captain's log, stardate... Oh, forget it, I don't know how stardate works. I've had another close encounter with the Austringer Empire. Starfleet won't be happy that I opened up computer banks to them, but they don't appear to be expansionists, at least from what little I know. Just fiercely protective of what they do have. I've sent the data about the encounter as quickly as possible, for I fear what may happen to any poor soul who breaches their territory again. In the Genesis version, that's about it for that part. In the Romulan version... Yes, in the Romulan version, you attempt to steal the IDF for yourself. They're not background items. You can actually pick these up. What the fuck did I just say? Pick these up? Oh, God. Let's try that again. Okay, I need to get the accent proper. Wait. Shepherd. This is Tali. Oh, now I sound like Nico. Oh, I sound like Roman. No, I sound like Nico. Nico's the... For the last time, Roman, I don't want to go fucking bowling. Fuck. Why does he say it like that? It's not fuck, it's fuck. It's like fuck. Like it's F-A-C-K, like fuck. I don't want to go fucking bowling. Nico, what's a fuck? I don't know. Stop making fun of my accent. God fucking damn it.